Hi, this is your host Sapil Bhartiya. We are here at KubeCon and CloudNativeCon in Paris, and today we have with us Ville Aikas, co-founder and distinguished engineer at Chainguard. Ville, it's great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me here. Really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure to host you here, and of course, your roots go back in Kubernetes. So I want to start. If you can kind of share, some of the early days of the before it was an open source project, and when we are here at around 12,000, attendees, how have you seen the project, the product, the ecosystem evolve over years?
One of the things that we wanted to go ahead and achieve was to go ahead and be able to give the unified computing plane and the abstraction. So before this, you had to make a choice up front on are you using VMs? If you're using VMs, what VM am I using? And now you become an expert in that. And one of the things that we wanted to solve with Kubernetes was to go ahead and be able to go ahead and make a unified control plane. And looking around, I think we have done a pretty darn good job as a community on being able to go and achieve that goal. It's amazing to see now the kinds of companies that are coming in here, having big booths and clearly demonstrating their commitment and their usage of the Kubernetes. So it's mind blowing.
When you look at today's world, what are some of the pain points that you see there, which if we can relate to led the creation of Chainguard?
To your point, it was not necessarily meant to be used by the end users. The one plug point there is I did found something called Knative a few years ago that was meant to address that, which is like, you don't have to understand low-level details. You can go and use it. But anyways, that was the first attempt at fixing some of our things in there. The other one is really security. So one of the things very early on, we had some feedback from folks. They're like, are you crazy? You're going to let people run anything off the internet? And I was like, well, one thought was that people really wouldn't be doing that. Well, what we are seeing is people are doing that, and because it's so easy to go and get things done, in many cases, this is precisely where you end up in. You start, you get ahead of the game, you get things accomplished, and then you have to kind of go clean up your mess. And that's sort of kind of where we are with the Chainguard, is that we have been involved in ways of addressing some necessary but not sufficient ways of tackling this problem, which is provenance and having things like attestations from SIG-Store. And then on top of that, what we have seen from the industry is that it's very difficult for them to go ahead and keep up with the constant flow of CVEs. It takes so much time and effort to be able to understand, is this okay to run or not run? And I really just don't want the software to kill us all. So this is one way we are trying to go ahead and address this.
How do you look at security in the Kubernetes or cloud native world?
It's very complex. If you walk around this floor, you probably can't turn a corner without seeing some security company, and they are tackling different kinds of issues. And for us, it really is, you got to start at the very bottom, which is you are building something, and you want to build it on a solid foundation, because otherwise it doesn't matter. And that is where we come in, and we provide the secure base images and the secure application images that you can then build on a solid foundation and not have to worry about tackling those security problems at that level.
And you folks also made secure images available on Docker Hub as well.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, so one of the things we want to do is make sure that these images are available as widely as possible. So we just very recently announced this, that we are sharing our images, developer images, on the Docker Hub, so that anybody can go ahead and use them. And they can. And one of the nice things about that is that it's basically we show our work. You can go to Docker Hub, you can look at any one of our images and compare it against the ones that you are maybe running now, or maybe you are the ones that you are running from some different places, and you can easily see it. You don't have to take our word for it. We stand behind our numbers. And you can reproduce those numbers as well. It's been really great to be able to work with, in unison with another such large company, and to go and work together on addressing some of our security problems that we have started to understand that, oh snaps, we got to do something about it.
Are you working closely with either other open source projects or communities? They're leveraging their technologies for Chainguard?
Yeah, we are working with quite a few things. I already mentioned Sixstore a little bit, and we are also working with some other companies that are using, whether they are using Wolfie on some of their buildings. I think we are working with Dagger a little bit on trying to go and make things better. There was a fun little podcast that Dan did, maybe Dan Lawrence, one of the other, our CEO and co-founder, maybe last week or 2 weeks ago. So this is a solution that we need to solve as a community, and it's great to see the community come together.
When we look at Chainguard, we are looking a lot at the developer experience. But when we look at Kubernetes general, it was not a developer experience. No, it's more for operators kind of thing. So where do you see developers in this big massive ecosystem? How to make their life easier?
I'm still a dev. I always represent the devs, at least try to. So the point, sometimes there's a big friction between for the security teams telling devs you can't do this or blah blah blah, and they're like, no, I just want to write my code, I want to ship it, I want to what I really want to do is make my product better. And when many of the security tools, they introduce friction in the process. They're like, you can't do that, or you can't use that, and everything else. And one of the things that is really resonating with the developers is that when they come in, they get additional benefits out of these out of the images that Chainguard provides, because they are smaller, they don't have the CVEs, and they all come with like an SBOM. And while the SBOM is not, it's often thought of as, oh, it's just a checkpoint. But it's a security thing, so I can look and see what is in the container. But it's also a very handy tool to understand. There was a project last year where it was being end-of-lined, and that sent people to a frenzy, understanding what does it mean? What do I need to do? And if you have an SBOM, you can actually understand where am I running that code, how am I using it, and there's many benefits on SBOMs as well for the developers.
When it comes to cloud native, or if you look at the Kubernetes world, and it comes to security, one thing that has changed is in the pre-cloud native world, security was always an afterthought. It was someone else's problem, and of course, developers don't like to talk to security because they are going to slow you down, they are going to shut down your. But now it is becoming a priority. It is moving in development pipeline, not because of the whole DevOps movement, but because of the tools that your teams folks are building, because the tools, they bring the cultural changes needed in that, because you make it easier for developers to embrace those practices, to embrace those. So talk a bit about the whole security landscape that you have seen change, and what has been the catalyst of this change?
Before cloud days, yeah, to your point, there was teams that were basically locking everything down, and it was in their best interest not to change anything. So the developers would want something newer, and the answer was no. Whether it was security or whether it was just running a system maintenance. With the introduction of the containers, that needle swung totally the wrong way, because these containers became a delivery vehicle for anything that the developers might want to do. Because it was like, well, it's just a container. And now we are again coming back into the thing where we are understanding that we need to understand what is running in those containers. And also, to the point about best practices, by using minimal containers, you are saving money because you are running smaller containers. They start up faster. Like, those are not security benefits, but developers are going to like that, because it's like, oh, okay, with this one weird trick, by using better base images, my life has gotten better. Like, why wouldn't I do that? So that again is something that is resonating with the devs, because they again want to go and focus on their product. They don't care about other things for the most part. They care about getting stuff done, and anything that stands on that way is going to make them angry.
Can you also talk about what are some of the major trends that you're seeing in the space?
The trends that I'm seeing that are making me happy. So I'll talk about the happy trends. So the happy trends I'm seeing, that people are caring about security. So a couple of years ago, we were at KubeCon, and people didn't know what, for example, Sixstore is. So why would I care about things like that? And now it's like a table stakes. People are like, do you have that? It's like, yes. So that's been nice to see the awareness, and I think that we have done a great job as a community raising awareness of that. And now we are starting to go ahead and get to the point where people are like, how do I fix that? So that again makes me happy. It's like, you understand you have a problem? Great. Now, how do I fix it? So that is making me happy. We are doing something about it as a community. As far as the AI, it is going to have a couple of it's going to have great things. It's going to help developers be more productive. It's also going to make the bad people more productive. So that's the bad thing. So this is the good thing. Developers are more productive. The other one is going to be very tricky, and it's very hard for me to go ahead and really think about it because it's changing so rapidly. So if you look at like what was happening 6 months ago versus what was happening 3 months ago, it's very, people sometimes go, what's going to happen in the next year? And my honest answer is no idea. I'd be happy to go ahead and say, everything's going to be 10x better, 10x faster, 10x cheaper. But I'm really curiously watching this, and I'm waiting for somebody to have enough timeline there where we are going to have, kind of the equivalent of Moore's law. So we're going to have like the AI's law where, at what point can we see that so that we can predict and sort of kind of like when do I hop on that? And it reminds me a lot about things like when people used to wait around for the PC. You wouldn't want to buy a PC because you're like, oh, but in like 3 months there's going to be something else, and then you never end up upgrading. But so I'm really curious because it's not only one thing that we are seeing. Every company is doing this, so it's almost like a full-time job to stay on top of it.
Just give us a glimpse of what to expect this year.
So one of the things that is easy enough to say is basically more and better images are always coming out. So when customers are like, hey, we want to use this one, we just, for example, launched a lot of the AI-based CUDA images that, again, more secure, faster, cheaper, smaller. So we are really excited to see that taken adoption. I think there's more of those that we can see. This is not necessarily Chainguard specific, but I am going to be curious about sort of kind of at what point people are going to start worrying about doing similar. If you squint your eyes and you basically say, okay, I want to go and make sure that my container is signed, I understand what is in there, nobody has tampered with it. At what point we are going to start seeing some demand and something done there for the data, whether it's not data, AI, whether it's data, whether it's models, whether it's training sets. I think that's going to be interesting to see. So we will keep cranking. So just stay tuned and keep watching what we cook up.
But more, not necessarily trend, but we are talking a lot about cloud to edge continuum. What does security mean? And when we are talking edge, it can be defined in so many ways, but I think my basic definition of edge is a resource-constrained data center, which is closer to user, and a lot of decisions are being made locally. What does security mean there? And if that is under Chainguard's radar.
You mentioned resource constraints, so of course it's nicer if anything you run there, it's smaller and it's secure by default. So that is the kind of the easy answer there. As far as the other trends, the nice thing is that if we are seeing many of those things being treated as Kubernetes, which means that, again, many of those same techniques and solutions that this wonderful community is building will apply there as well. It does, of course, bring different kind of problems along with it because it might not be connected all the time. It might not be able to do those. So you're just going to have to make the proper threat analysis there and put that thinking cap on and add a few more problems you have to deal with, as if we don't already have enough.
Nobody likes regulations, but regulations are the one that when you take a flight, because there are regulations in place, we know they have done so it's safe to fly. So same thing with the regulation. When it comes to security, do you think that there are enough regulations in place, or you feel no, let's leave it to the industry, or you feel that no, there were a lot of executive orders from the Biden administration. Europe is doing a lot of work in the security space. Of course, I'm not talking about Gen AI space, but I'm just talking about from regulatory perspective, how mature do you think we are?
One could say that the industry was left alone for a while to their own devices to go ahead and deal with this. And again, one could argue that they didn't really do a great job at it. So I sort of kind of feel like at the time, government was forced to step in, kind of like back in the day, the auto industry was left to their own devices, and then government had to come in and go like, okay, enough is enough. We have to do something about this. So I do think that in the current state of the world, there has to be some accountability for many of these things. I think we just have to make sure that we are we as the industry, the world, are tackling it in a way that makes sense, where it's very difficult sometimes to go ahead and make sure that what the intent of the law or the regulation is, that is the same that actually gets written down. And I think that's where we can go ahead and make sure that there's good, clear communication by the people that understand the industry, as well as the people that are writing the laws, so that it doesn't come across like requirements, and then the industry looks at it and goes like, well, this doesn't make any sense, but okay, I can do this. So
I may be wrong about that, but I feel that security is actually an enabler. When you have those guardrails in place, when you have the protections in place, it frees developers up from those worries. They can actually innovate better versus. So can you also demystify that myth that now security actually is not, is not a hurdle, a stumbling block. It's actually an enabler.
Yeah, I love that. One of the things that we use a lot is secure by default, which is there are many products where you basically come in, and unless you know as an expert user to click that one bit or slide that slider or turn that crank, it's not secure. And I think more and more products are starting to realize that you start with the secure by default mindset. So to your point, where the developer doesn't have to worry about in that environment, where you don't have to worry about like, am I doing the right thing? So first I have to become an expert in whatever I'm deploying or how I'm doing things or whatever else. I don't have to worry about that if it is secure by default. So it should be hard for you to do the insecure thing. And by that point, you should know what you are doing. And by that point, you should be an expert, right? So not the other way around. So guardrails.
Ville, thank you so much for taking time out today. Not only talk about Chainguard, but the whole evolution of cloud native space. Thanks for talking about security and great insight there. And I would love to have you back on the show.
Oh, thank you for having. This was a blast. It was a pleasure. And yeah, I would love to go ahead and chat at any time.